Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing my January wrap up. I read 12 books in the month of January. So how I do my wrap ups, if you're new here, I start with the books that I like the least and then I work my way up to the books I like the most. So I start with rants and then end on raves. So, we're gonna get into some book reviews. Typically I read a lot of horror, extreme horror, thrillers on this channel. Those are my vibe, but I read a lot of lit fic in January. I know, it's so weird. And you'll see there was kind of an overall theme to the 4 and 5 star reads that I had. They all had to do with mental health, like mental health rep, sad girl lit fic, unhinged women was another big one. Like, that was the vibe for January, okay? If you know, you know. I had a terrible January, like, really bad. One of the worst months of my life. And if you saw my horror vlog that I posted this month, you know, I talked about the fact that I got a concussion and I've been dealing with some post-concussion symptoms from that. I still have vertigo. I still have like a neck injury. Like, I'm just not 100%. And I also developed a panic disorder since my concussion. So I really have been struggling with my mental health. I mean, I always struggle with my mental health, but especially so since January 1st when that happened. And so I was just kind of going through it all January and dealing with a lot of health stuff. So my month was not good, but also, like, one of the best things of my life happened to me in January, and that was seeing Pete Davidson live. I know, drag me. I don't care. I don't care, okay? So yeah, I had some really great things happen, exciting, and then some really shitty things happen, but just struggling the entire month. So I did do a lot of audiobooks because of my vision and stuff and my headaches. So I did do a lot of audiobooks, but then some of these I love so much that I purchased the physical books because I wanted to like annotate, and I really plan on rereading them in the future. So anyways, without further ado, we are going to start with the books that I liked the least. So in addition to the 12 books that I read, I DNF'd one book, and that was The Night Stalkers by Christopher Triana and Ryan Harding. I know. This was a buddy read with me and a couple of my friends, and a lot of us ended up DNFing it because I got halfway, and it's about this, like, I don't know, just like a regular food store, and then there's this other food store called Devil's Food, and they are run by a bunch of Satanists, are trying to kill the competition. So they're literally trying to kill all the people that work at this other, what is it called? Freshway? The Freshway grocery store. So that's what this is about. It's just over the top splatterpunk gore for the sake of being gory. Like, just, it's supposed to be like fun, slasher, violent, just for the sake of, but I just couldn't get into this one. There were tons and tons of characters because you're following like the employees from both grocery stores, and then lots of over the top gore. Like, obviously people start dying, and I just didn't really care about any of these characters. I need to feel something for at least one of the characters in order to get sucked into a book like this. So it just didn't work for me. And then also the writing, like, there's a lot of weird things in here. Like page 1, it said like magnificent mammary glands or something like that. Like what the hell did it say? I don't know, something about her mammary glands. And I was like, oh my God, this writing, I can't. Yeah, just like a lot of weird descriptive terms like that. And it was driving me insane. Something about comparing a penis to like a bratwurst. Something about a bratwurst was in here. I wish I would have like annotated because I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. But you can tell like they wrote it just to be like fun and whatever, and I get it, but it just wasn't for me. Like, I just need some kind of plot or like character that I love, and this just didn't do it, sadly. Moving into all the books that I finished physically, the one that I liked the least was The Rotting Within by Matt Kurtz. This is about this woman who goes to a hotel, or it's like a bed and breakfast, yeah. And it's run by like her estranged grandmother. And she's escaping her abusive boyfriend. So she takes her kids, she has 2 little kids, a girl and a boy. She takes them to this bed and breakfast run by her estranged grandmother to like escape this abusive boyfriend, but there's something weird going on at the bed and breakfast, and like the kids are hearing and seeing things, and there's just weird things going on. So you don't know, like, is it one of the people that live there? Is it one of the people that work there? What's going on with the grandmother? You're just trying to figure out, you know, is it haunted? What's going on? I thought that this was going to be a little more like shocking than it was. It kind of dragged. I wasn't super invested in what was going on. I wasn't invested with the characters. Also, the back of the book pretty much gives away almost everything that happens in this book until the very end. So it was just, I was like, oh, we're on page, you know, 200, and we're still like talking about things that are mentioned on the back of the book. I hate when synopses do that. And so I just didn't find this very thrilling. I didn't find it shocking. There were a bunch of random characters that were just kind of thrown in there for no reason and had nothing to do with the story. I don't know. I gave this one 2 stars. I usually see a lot of good reviews on this book, but when I went on Goodreads, it has a lot of mixed reviews, and a lot of people felt the same way as me. So I don't know. And this is more general horror, by the way. I thought it was extreme horror also. It's not, but I ended up going with 2 stars. Overall, just it wasn't a fan. Then my next 2-star was Schrader's Chord by Scott Leeds. This is another one. I see nothing but 5-star reviews all over Instagram. YouTube people seem to be kind of all over the place on this one. And this one was a huge miss for me. I actually was so excited to read this. I thought this was going to be a 5-star read, and my last book too. But no, if you saw my 5-star prediction vlog, this was another 2-star flop. So this one, we are following this guy. We find out in the beginning of the book that his dad died and hung himself, and he owned this record store. So our main character, Charlie, is now the owner of this record store where this girl, Anna, works, and this other guy works. And so now he has to take over this record store, but his dad leaves him some records called Schrader's Chord. And here, this was an urban legend that his dad used to tell when he was a kid about if you play these 4 records all at the same time, it opens up like a portal to the dead. So what does he do? He of course plays them, and like that's what's happening. This one was just all over the place. There's a weird romance subplot that I hated. It's very, very slow. I mean, nothing happens until 200 pages into the book, which is fine, but it wasn't all, like, nothing was happening that was keeping me engaged. And then once the horror aspects kicked in, it felt a little goofy. Like, I felt a little confused. I was like, is this supposed to be scary or is this supposed to be goofy? Because certain parts are, like, creepy, and then other parts were, like, the ghosts felt like Scooby-Doo. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was weird. I wasn't a big fan. And then we got to the end and like, I was just like, oh, that's it? Like, that's all that's happening? I just didn't like the characters or the way that the story was told, unfortunately. I know a lot of people love this one, but this was just a huge miss for me. Then, I think that was it for 2-star reads. Moving into like 2.5, 3 stars, somewhere in there, I have a thriller, and it is Number One Fan by Meg Ellison. This one is about a stalker. So this is about an author, and in the very beginning of the book, I'm talking like first page of the book, she gets picked up by this like Uber driver, and turns out he's a stalker. He's her #1 fan, and he's like obsessed with her books. This man is deeply, deeply invested in her fantasy series that she writes, and she thinks that she might recognize him from somewhere, but she's not sure where. And basically he kidnaps her and keeps her in his basement, and she's trying to figure out like what he wants with her and why, and where she knows him from, right? And so we're also getting some chapters from the stalker abductor, and like those were kind of interesting and creepy, and his reasoning for things is kind of off the walls, but also we're like getting tons and tons and tons of chapters from the past. So the thing that I didn't like about this book was the way that it was written. It just did not work for me. The writing style did not work because it started with such high stakes, and it started with this huge bang in the first chapter. I was like so invested, and then it slowed down so much because we kept getting these super long chapters about like her past and her book signings and her publicist and her book tours and her fantasy series and learning about the books that she wrote. And I was like, oh my God, just take us back to the basement. I want to know what's going on with the stalker. Like, why are we learning so much information that could have been cut down? I don't know. The pacing was just really off for me. And then unfortunately, when more things started happening with like torture and things like that, I was just like not super invested anymore because I kept getting these long chapters that I didn't care about. So I wasn't a huge fan of the pacing. It is kind of like a Misery by Stephen King feeling to it. Very, very similar, but just more poorly done. But I mean, I didn't hate this book. I don't think it was bad. If you don't mind that kind of writing style, I would still recommend it. Like, I ended up liking it more towards the end of the book than I did like in the middle, you know? Like, it got worse and then it did get a little better for me. So I would still recommend it, just wasn't a huge, huge fan. And I think we can move into 4-star books. I have a couple. First, I did a reread of Zola by D.E. McCluskey. This is a splatterpunk book about cheese. So we're following this woman and her son, and she has an abusive husband, and she's obsessed with eating cheese. She's addicted to cheese, and just crazy things happen from there. It's very disgusting. And I did film this for a spoiler video. I don't know how entertaining that video is. I still need to edit it, but like I filmed that with a terrible concussion. So yeah, I apologize in advance, but you guys have been asking me for a full spoiler video if you don't want to read this book because you want to know why it's so disgusting. So I did do that. It is coming. I just don't know how exciting it is, but yeah, it's awful. Then I read Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. Shocking, I know. I read 3 books by Rachel Harrison before on this channel, and I hated all 3 of them. I've done nothing but trash talk her and her books. Well, I don't trash talk her. I trash talk her books. I've done nothing but get aggressive about this woman's books on this channel, and the one day, you know, I embraced audiobooks this month, and so I was sitting there at work and I was like, oh, this book is available on Libby through the library. So I downloaded it, I listened to it, and I actually really enjoyed it. This was my favorite Rachel Harrison book. Obviously, I gave it 4 stars. We're following this woman who, she is the black sheep of her family. Her family's in this kind of like religious cult, like they're all about religion, and she is like, she doesn't fit in with her family. She stopped talking to them when she was 18. She moved away and hasn't spoken to any of them, and just, you know, feels uncomfortable around their presence. And then one day she gets an invitation for a wedding for one of her cousins and decides to go back home and get back together with the family. And you just see the craziness ensue from this family. It's about fucked up family dynamics, which I love, and then it also is about like religious trauma, which I love. And so those are the two things that I was like, oh, this sounds like it could be really good. And then the cult aspect, I enjoyed it. It is a very slow burn, like cozy horror, meaning, you know, it's nothing like super over the top crazy horror, but there are some slight horror aspects to it. I really liked the twist in this book, and then I liked the ending of this book. So, I mean, it kept me engaged, it kept me entertained, and I really liked the exploration of like the family and religious trauma. So, totally recommend this one. My next 4-star read was Death Valley by Melissa Broder. I discovered how much I fucking love Melissa Broder in January. I love her. I'm obsessed with her. I want to hang out with her. I want to be best friends. I want her to come live with me. I want to talk about our mental health issues. Like, this woman gets me. This is a lit fic moment. This is about this woman who, her husband is struggling with like a chronic disease, progressive disease, and her dad is in the ICU. He almost died. He might be dying. So he's in the ICU. She's dealing with her husband back at home. She's a writer, and she decides to go out to the desert to kind of have like a getaway and write and just be away from her terrible, shitty life. As she gets to the desert, she decides to, you know, go for a hike, and she finds this giant cactus with a door. It looks like a little vag, okay? It's like a vaginal cacti. It has this like door that you open up and go inside. So she's like going inside the vaginal cactus, okay? And it's just like a magical realism, lit fic, sad girl depression book, okay? I loved the commentary about death and dying, death versus dying, how we're all dying, okay? We're all dying. Literally something I think about every single day, and like it scares the crap out of me. It really does. So much amazing commentary about grief, about anxiety, about depression. This book was so relatable. This book was so spot on. I mean, some of these like sentences felt like they came out of my brain. I was like, oh my God, Melissa Broder gets it. Melissa Broder is my therapist. Melissa Broder gets me. And I felt so seen, and you know, grief and death and dying and anxiety and depression are all things that I am just like are spinning in my head 24/7. And this was just so comforting to me and so relatable. And I loved this book so much. Maybe it's even more than a 4-star for me. I don't know, but it led me down the path of the Melissa Broder spiral that I went down, which we're gonna get into in a second even more, but I highly recommend this book. Totally loved it. And then let's stick to the theme of depression. I read this horror book, The Horror by David Sodergren. Absolutely loved it. It's also about grief and depression and death and dying. So yeah, I love that. This book is about this woman. She's like 80 years old, and she lives in this like Scottish fisherman town, and basically these contractors come and knock on her door, and they're like, hey, we're gonna pay you this money so you can relocate, because we're knocking down all the houses and kind of like redoing the area. But she has, you know, all these memories in this house, and her husband passed away, and this house is like all that she has left to like remember him by. And so she's like, no, I'm not moving. And so, you know, they keep trying to get her to move out, and they're like, take our money. And she's like, I don't want your money. So she goes down, and there's like this fog that takes over the town every so often. And she goes down and finds this mysterious sea creature, and it's like a sea creature that no one's ever discovered. It's like a new creature. She takes it and brings it home. I won't give anything else away. This was so wild. This was so well written. The exploration of depression and grief and death and dying, and it was just so beautifully done. And it kept taking these turns where I didn't know what to expect. and it just kept getting weirder and crazier, but like in the best way. And getting inside our main character's head was just sad. It was sad but beautiful. The ending to this was perfection. Just the overall meaning and plot of this book was so well done. This is another one where I'm like leaning towards like a 4.5. You know, it didn't give me like a 5-star obsessed feeling, but I absolutely love this book. I loved what it was trying to do. It accomplished what it was trying to do. And just the overall tone and theme was just amazing. I can't wait to read more from David Sodergren because I fell in love with his writing. I did. I fell in love. The next time I buy books, the next time I do a haul, I want to get a couple more books by him. But also, I think a lot of them are in Kindle Unlimited. So maybe I'll just binge them. We'll see. I don't know. But I can't wait to read more from him. This was so good. I was hoping that I would love his books because I keep seeing them everywhere, and like I definitely really love this one. Highly recommend if you want a good horror book with meaning. Then next I did an audiobook for Animal by Lisa Taddeo. This is another 4-star for me, but another one that I like really loved. I don't know, are all of these actually 5 stars? Probably. Who knows? Who knows, okay? But this is an unhinged woman feminine rage book. Literally my favorite trope of all time. Really. Men pissed me off in January, okay? Men were on my last nerve in January. And this one I read shortly after that, and it was just everything that I was hoping it would be. So this is another lit fic book. It's not super like graphic over the top or anything, but just know that going in. It's not like Kim from Full Brutal, but it's just an angry woman, and it gets progressively crazier as you go. But let me tell you what it's about first. So this is about a woman named Joan. So in the beginning of the book, we find out that she was dating her married boss, and he's married and having an affair, and she goes out to a restaurant with another guy, and her boss comes in, sees them together. He shoots and kills himself right in front of her. And then after that, she decides to move back to, or she's in New York and she decides to move to LA to kind of start her life over because she finds out that her half-sister lives there and she really wants to develop a relationship with her sister and kind of learn more about her and become friends with her. So that's this book. She moves in and we kind of meet the neighbors, we meet, you know, we get to know our main character in depth and the story of her life and all the fucked up things that happen throughout her life involving other men, and even things, you know, involving her parents and why she is the way that she is. She's very just like cynical and fed up with men, and we learn why, and we learn all the horrible things that she's been through throughout her life, all the horrible things that men have done, and it's just very enraging. Yeah, the book is very slow. It's very slow and flowery at times, which I typically don't like the flowery language, but I think it really worked for this one. There were so many amazing, beautiful quotes about feminine rage and just how women are treated. Some of these quotes in this book literally gave me goosebumps. I mean, like, I had like chills listening to this audiobook, which is also narrated by Emma Roberts. I didn't know that she did audiobooks now, but love that. This book does get more angry and more unhinged as you go. Some like really crazy things happened at the end of this book, but so beautiful, so well done. This is another one. I'm kind of like, the more that I talk about it, I'm like, oh my God, this might be 5 stars. I don't know. I had so many good reads in January, but yeah, really love this one. Highly recommend. I read this psychology book. It's a nonfiction called I Hate You, Don't Leave Me, Understanding the Borderline Personality. This is of course about borderline personality disorder, and full disclosure, I know I'm very open when it comes to physical and mental health on my channel. I don't think it's anything to be ashamed about. I don't think it's anything that anyone needs to hide. Like, we're all crazy to a certain extent, okay? I've had suspicions for a very long time that I might be borderline, and also I've had therapists in the past that had suspicions, so on and so forth. And reading this book pretty much solidified everything going on in my little brain of mine at all times, and just the way that my brain has been functioning my entire life. So this was very eye-opening to me. I really appreciated the first like 100 pages of this book. I was like, ugh, I felt so seen and so validated. And I think because I'm like a higher functioning person, I mask things really well, and no one would like assume these things about me, but and that's why I'm just such a hard person to diagnose. But this really solidified some things for me. It had some eye-opening things about my mental health, so hopefully I'll be on the track to getting that figured out soon. But highly recommend this book. I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 because some of the like, I don't know, some of the stuff talking about like the cause of it and the manifestation of it, so on and so forth, was a little outdated. Like, it just seemed a little outdated. Gender roles and stuff like that. I don't know, it just seemed a little bit the more that you get into this book. But lots of information, like I said, and also if you are caring for a loved one with borderline personality disorder, I would recommend this one because it has a lot of like caregiver information. So yeah. Then getting into my 5-star reads. First I had Doom Scrolling by Judith Sonnet. This is a short story that is available on her Patreon. So I loved this one. It is extreme horror. So we're following this unnamed, ungendered person. You're just kind of reading like a journal from this person, and how every time they go on social media, they just see videos of like horrific videos of people dying, getting killed, like torture videos, horrible things, right? And so every time they go on their phone, these videos just keep popping up in the algorithm, and if they try to avoid it, like things just get worse and just start popping up all over the place. So this is how they've been living their life, and they're just kind of like writing in this journal about what's been happening, and it is wild, it's gross, it's like just very, like I said, extreme horror, snuff film type book where you're just getting all these nasty images and things that have been happening. But I just love the way that this story was told. I loved the writing. I loved the exploration of like the algorithm and the darker side of the internet. Lots of commentary on those things, and also lots of commentary about like cancel culture was in there too, and you know, just like exploring the dark, disgusting side of the internet. And I really love this. It's one of those books where I just flew through it, first of all because it's short, and second of all because this is exactly what I was looking for at the time that I read this. Like, I just wanted some kind of gritty, realistic type extreme horror when I started reading this, and it gave that to me, and I absolutely loved it. Highly recommend. And then my other 2 favorite books, I read another Melissa Broder. I listened to the audio of this one and then purchased the physical because I loved it so much, and it's The Pisces. This one is batshit insane. This is another like lit fic smut, I don't even know, but this is about this woman, Lucy, and in the beginning of the book, she breaks up with her boyfriend, but then is like, oh, never mind, I don't actually want to break up with you, but then he's like, too late, they actually like break up, and she's like, oh shit. So she enters this deep depression, and she decides to come house sit for her sister, who goes away, and she has this like sick dog, so she decides to go over to house sit, and kind of find herself, and, you know, she's writing her paper for college, and, you know, she decides to start going to therapy to try to work on herself, but she just keeps spiraling more and more and more. We, you know, follow her on dates. She finds this perfect man, and it's wild. It's like mermaid smut, wild, erotica, fucked up, sad girl lit fic, which sounds like something that I would not enjoy, but this main character, she's horrible, but she's also insanely relatable. And the thing that I love about Melissa Broder is that all of her characters are like horrible people, but realistic. And they're also super relatable. And it kind of makes me feel like, does Melissa Broder have the same mental illness as me? Because the things that are touched upon, I'm like, only someone with the same mental illness would probably find this relatable. But I love her writing. I love her characters. They're so flawed. And just the overall theme of this book about depression, about anxiety, about obsession. It's about romantic obsession and trying to fill the void inside yourself with other people and with relationships, and the overall exploration of how am I supposed to care for someone else, or how am I supposed to care for something else when I can't even care for myself because I'm so mentally ill. Do you know what I mean? She has so many issues with, you know, like I said, anxiety and depression, and just addiction, impulsivity, recklessness, and I just thought that this was so relatable. And it's just all the awful qualities that I have about myself were in this main character, and I loved it. And then also she touches on all these things but also uses dark humor, so I'm cackling. I'm like, this is so awful, but I'm laughing because the smut aspects of this book were hilarious. I was like, what the fuck am I reading? I can't say enough good things about this book. One of my favorite books of all time, one of my favorite books of 2024 already. I love her. I also purchased Milk Fed and So Sad Today, which are like personal nonfiction essays about her and her mental illness, and I'm like, Melissa Broder and I might be the same person. I don't know. I love her so much. I love this book so much. And she's just one of those people where either you absolutely vibe with her writing or you don't at all and you hate it. So I'm so glad that I'm someone that vibes with it, because I just, literally one of those books, I had to purchase it because I need to reread it and just highlight everything that I find relatable, because this meant so much to me. Then my last book, my last 5-star was Down the Drain by Julia Fox. Another one, I listened to the audio, I loved it so much, I bought the physical, and I actually plan on rereading it, if not in February, then maybe in March, because that's how much I love this book. But is a nonfiction memoir about Julia Fox, who is an Italian actress and model. If you don't know her, I mean, she lives in the United States, but she was in like Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. Do you know her? Do you know her? Because I didn't know her for the longest time, and now I'm so glad that I figured out who she is because I love her. But this is her memoir, and it's fucking wild. It is wild. Literally, I think the most crazy, unhinged celebrity memoir I've ever read, but so brutal, so honest, so raw, so vulnerable. The things that she's been through, like, her life is rough, okay? Her childhood, rough. Her teenage years, rough, but also like, and her early adulthood, horrible. Drugs, sex, she's a sex worker working as a dominatrix. I mean, just wild, crazy things. The people that she involved herself with were not the best, but also like, I kind of saw myself in her. Like some of her crazy friends and crazy things that she did, I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of myself when I was like a teenager and early adulthood. And she also found out that she had borderline personality disorder, and the entire time I'm like, yeah, that checks out. But yeah, I absolutely love this so much. This is unhinged woman at its finest. This is unhinged of all unhinged women. I loved it so much. And also, like, she was not kidding when she said that this is a masterpiece. She said that this book is a masterpiece, and I agree. This is a masterpiece. This is such a well done celebrity memoir. It was beautiful, but heartbreaking at the same time. And I always admire people that are so open about their lives and so openly share their struggles, because other people are also dealing with the same thing, you know? And I feel like being that open helps other people, and that's why I do it online. And so I admire anyone that can like put those feelings into words, and because I know other people are going to read this and relate, you know? I love this woman. I love this woman. She's the best. So highly recommend. I can't wait to give this a reread because it's fucking wild. I'm like literally, I was with my concussion laying on the couch, just like this, listening to her talk about being a dominatrix and like pissing in this man's mouth. And I was like, yes, queen, pop off, no cap, on God. Okay. So that is it. Those were the 12 books that I read in January. Let me know what your favorite book you read in January was in the comments down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.